Once upon a time, there was a boy who wasn't much of a boy. He wasn't physically strong. He didn't care very much for games such as other boys played. Indeed, he didn't care very much for other boys. He lived mostly in a dream world of his own. Then, one clear January day, a good many years ago, he became a scout because his father gave him the handbook for boys for a Christmas present. Little by little, he became absorbed in the life of the scouts, and the things that scouts do, and the ideals of the scout movement. He was lucky enough to have a very wise scoutmaster who understood the minds and moods and abilities of his boys, and tried to give each one an opportunity to grow. And so, one day, the scout found himself appointed a patrol leader. And right then and there, a new life started for him. His responsibilities developed his character. His life with his patrol in the open strengthened his body. The realness of the boys in his group made him into a real boy himself. For a long time, he carried on his job. Slowly, he learned its many phases. Slowly, he made himself a leader somewhere near worthy of those wide awake, very much alive boys of his, that patrol group with its splendid spirit of loyalty, unity, and togetherness. And as he worked, he came to wish that he might someday give to other patrol leaders the benefits of some of his experiences to help them along on their path to successful leadership. This book, which you boys now have in your hands, is that other boy's dream come true. William Hillcourt. Now, this copy of William Hillcourt, or Greenbar's Bill's Patrol Leader's Handbook, was the very first Patrol Leader's Handbook authorized by the Boy Scouts of America. And Mr. Hillcourt is somewhat of a hero of mine. He started out scouting in the early days of the movement here in the United States. And he was a prominent writer in the scouting magazine and in Boy's Life. Now, he's not like, per se, Horace Kephart or Nessmuk as far as in that idea of a woodsman. He focused definitely more on the leadership skills aspect, teaching young people how to be leaders and how to do things. He was a teacher, just like myself. So I relate to him a lot. But anybody who picks up this manual, now my cover came off because I read it so much, and it's the original one from 1928. Anybody who reads this gleans something from it. It's not just for kids. There's a lot of tidbits in adult leadership in here. Now, that's not what this video is about. This video is actually about backpacks. But the backpack that we're going to explore today was specifically designed by Greenbar Bill, William Hillcourt himself. And he talks about it in his book. And one thing that I love, absolutely love about old-time scouting is that compared to the commercialism that we have today, and there was commercialism in the scouting program even early on in the 1910s and 20s and everything, but there was more of a push due to necessity, but also due to being part of the program for young people to make their own equipment. So even if you couldn't afford to go out and buy something, in the various scouting magazines, scouting resources, the Boys Life magazine, and books like this, and even in your scout manual, they show you how to make things and they explain how you can make things. Okay? So, today's video, we're going to discuss what William Hillcourt called the camp O-sack. Now, this is probably the rarest piece of scouting equipment next to the tent that I own. Because, well, I don't know why, honestly. I don't know why it's super rare. I don't know why it's scarce. I have my hypothesis, but I don't have anything to found it on besides, just reasoning and reading and stuff. But I have two bags here. One is the Yucca 574, and the other is the camp O-sack. Now, the Yucca, at the time that this came out, sold at the same price as the camp O-sack, at $3. But in one of my catalogs, both of these are sitting right next to each other in the catalog, is 1933, early on in the Great Depression, right? We're talking $3. Now, that's quite a bit of money. It really is. And Mr. Hilcourt in his book tells you how that you can produce your own, you can make your own. And what I like about Mr. Hilcourt's bag compared to this one is there's a lot of innovation that went into this. There's a lot of detail, someone who's definitely spent some time out in the woods compared to this. I mean, this is pretty much just a rectangular bag with some straps to throw over your shoulder. Now, a nice thing about the 574 is it does have these D-rings for you to attach equipment to. So we can do the bedroll. If you're running out of space in the main compartment, you can attach your axe to it or your shovel or other things, and you can use it to cinch it, which makes it a nice tighter fitting and closed bag, which can be more comfortable when you're trekking over long distances. Now, Mr. Hilcourt's bag does not have those features. However, I think as far as comfort-wise, his features are a little bit more ahead than this. Okay, so what are we talking here? So they're both pretty much the same. They're different. It's a bag, it's canvas, right? And the B.S.A is rectangular in the main body, and it's got a bellows pocket on the front, whereas this is rectangular all the way. One thing I love about the B.S.A is when you put something in this top flat pocket, it holds things better. In here right now, and I'll unload it and we'll go through it so you can see how I suggest that you pack your bag, but you can adapt it to your own. If I were to put my rain gear in this flap here, because of how it sits, and it's a very shallow flap and it's not bellowed, it's rectangular, this one offers more space for expansion. It can only fit a few things in here. And when I do that, I'm always afraid that it's going to eventually slide out the top here, even with it buckled down. This, on the other hand, I do have my entire rain gear here, and there's still space in there. I could actually put more in this top flap. And the nice thing about the top flap is this is for stuff that you want to get to quickly, right away. Maybe your map, or your rain gear, or first aid kit. Something like that, something that you need to get to right away. You don't have to fiddle fart around. You can just open it up and it's right there. Okay, I'm going to set this off to the side. In this bag is everything that I would carry with me for a weekend. And a couple weeks ago, you saw me use my haversack and how I would load that down. Now the haversack, by tradition, is essentially just for your food items. So we had to get kind of creative about how we pack things in there, especially like our clothes and blanket and things like that. In this bag, there's a lot more space to it. And it's designed to actually carry things pretty comfortably. Now, it's got very wide straps in comparison to the haversack, so that right away helps it ride on your shoulders without cutting in to your shoulder bone or your neck. It also has this really nice D-ring here. Now, this D-ring can be used for a couple things. You could lash something to it, so I could put my bedroll on top instead of underneath, but I can also use this to hang from a tree. I can use a toggle system and hang this right there, and now I have my luggage easy to get to. So I think that is a pretty cool feature that the Yucca didn't have. It also has this side, I don't know what you would call it through. It's a piece of webbing that you can stick something all the way through. Now you could take rope or a belt or something like that, and you can lash a bedroll system to it, just like we would with the deer rings, or like what we do with the haversack backpack. But what I think you can also do with this, and I don't know if it was done, I didn't see anything written about it, but I put this on my son, who's about the right height and he's the right build of a scout from the 1920s and 1930s. Very different from my own stature. And where this sits is right above his hip bone. So you could attach a belt here and you can use it like a more modern day backpack so it rides on your hips, alleviating the pressure from the shoulder. I think that is awesome. Again, I don't know if anybody did that, but it's certainly a feature that in my modern understanding is really nice. Okay, so if we open up our 2 leather buckles here. Now I don't take this out camping because it is super rare, and my experience with scouting equipment that's this old, it's very easy to tear. It's pretty delicate. So I have my rubber blanket here, which I use as a poncho. I'll throw this around my shoulders, and that's my poncho. It's also used as my ground cloth. Now below here, we have our 2 straps that we can undo. Now what I did is to keep these things in place, I took a piece of rope and I tied 2 figure-8 knots, 1 on each side, and then I did just a single overhand knot on the bottoms so they don't fray out. Inside here, we have a cinch sack system. So we have these grommets, not eyelets, but they're grommets, and they're put in a way that you can use it much like a duffel bag or cinch sack. So we undo that, and it quickly comes undone. Now, one thing I didn't put in here, but there's plenty of space. As you can see, there is a lot more space in here. I did not put my blanket in here because I'm using it for my table. I also didn't put any food, but I am confident that there's enough space in here for the food, and if nothing else, I could wrap my blanket around in the horseshoe collar. I have a couple extra poke sacks to put things. Now this is all 1930s equipment to go along with my 1930s bag. I have a flashlight. I have my first aid kit right up top. I have my fire starting kit, a couple candles, I have my personal duffel. So in here I have a testament, I have my blanket pins, and I think I have something else. Oh, I have my sewing kit in there, 1930s official sewing kit. I also have my mess kit, which fits in there perfectly. Pillowcase. My folding lantern, which if you're interested in getting a folding lantern, or actually pretty much any of these things, if you go on my website, www.honorableoutfitters.com, and you go to my shopping page, there's reproductions or very close reproductions to everything that I generally carry. This is my personals bag. So this is where I have my soap, my toothbrush, my floss, my mirror, my brush, towel, things like that. My hatchet. Now my hatchet I could carry on my belt, but if you've ever hiked long distance, having a hatchet on your belt, it can be kind of tiresome. So I only carry my hatchet on my belt when I'm just going on short hiking trips, or for purposes where I know I'm going to use it. And my video about how to use my haversack, I misidentified the tent that I was using. I called it a 1910. And Mr. Vining, who's a good friend of mine and a mentor of mine, which you should check out his YouTube channel, Sergeant Vining. I think it's Sarge Vining. And check out his Facebook page, Bannerman's Camp, early 20th century camping. It's pretty cool. But this is a 1907 shelter half. And it's only one. It's not both. So as a scout, or even as a scoutmaster, especially if you know it's not going to rain or anything, just having a shelter half is perfectly fine. On top, I didn't see it. I do have an extra pair of socks. Now these are original scout socks. These are not ones that I wear. They're ones that my boys wear, because they're a little too small for me. The rest of this is also original 1930s scouting clothing. So I have my short sleeve summer issue shirt. And this is made out of cotton, very, very thin, perfect for summer use. I also have a long sleeve twill, cotton twill shirt. I have a pair of breeches, extra pair of pants, and my silverware. Is there anything else in here? No. Okay. So that's all the equipment that I put in here for this video. Now there's other things that you can put in there, of course, like your food, like my blanket, extra pair of underwear, maybe a sweater or a jacket. Now all of the historical outdoor writers suggest taking a sweater instead of a jacket. So that's what you would probably want to do if you're doing this impression or you're trying to go old school. Now, here are two features that makes this pack stand out above the rest, especially the Yucca pack. Now, before I get into that, if you found this video interesting and useful, do me a favor and click like. That way other people find it and it helps them out as well, okay? So hopefully this stuff gives you an idea of how you can pack your own stuff and how it's always in layers. Up top, I always put things I want to get to right away, like my fire kit, like my first aid kit, like my water, or like my rain gear. And I even have my flashlight and candles. That's towards the top. Oh, and an extra pair of socks. Always put that towards the top. And then everything else is layered by what you need when you might need it, like the lantern. Now, generally, as far as clothes, you know, you're not going to change clothes until the following day. But having your pants close by on top, that makes sense in case you fall in the mud or something, you can change out your pants. But another thing to consider when packing a bag, especially a bag like this, you want to put your soft things towards the bottom where it's going to be laying against your back versus harder things like this. You don't want that digging into your back or kidney or shoulder blade or something like that. So be very purposeful about how you lay out stuff, not only to what you need to get to quickly, but also what's going to be the most comfortable. And then you just got to play a little bit of Tetris and figure things out according to how or what you pack. Okay, so why did people choose the Yucca? There's a lot more Yucca on eBay, and collectors can easily get a 574 Yucca bag in comparison to this bag. Again, I don't know. But I suspect it has something to do with a publication called the Yucca Patrol System that came out about the same time. And when you have a scout troop, you want everybody to kind of look the same, especially when you go on hikes or parades, something like that together. Uniformity, that's your team jersey essentially. You know, everybody wears the same uniform. You get that team spirit, you get that patrol spirit. Now the volume of the Yucca is just a little bit bigger. So if you are carrying stuff, especially according to the Yucca Patrol System, it makes sense to have a larger volume bag. That is my hypothesis, is that that is what was being promoted at the time. And since there was a system developed around that bag, for marketing purposes, it just made it nicer. Now this does have a little bit less volume, but here are the features that really helps this stand out. This has essentially an early version of an internal frame. You heard that right. An internal frame. An internal frame has a structure that's inside the bag, which is a little bit different from an external frame, like an Alice pack or a Roycraft frame. So in this bag, you have a couple pockets right here on the inside, both about 8 inches apart, maybe 9 inches, and inside of them you have ash boards. This, I think, is just a copy of one that was lost. I think this is the original one. It does have 2 holes in the center, and I haven't been able to figure out why there are 2 holes drilled in the center. But this one's made out of plywood, and this one's solid wood. But they go in here, just slide on in, and it gives it just a little bit of rigidity. And helps support it along the back. And I think that's a pretty nice feature. It actually surprised me at how much comfort it added. And then along the top here, there's actually another little pocket. And see if I can push it out. We have another board that goes along here, which also gives a little bit of rigidity. So even though it's not a framed pack, that rectangular frame helps it not pinch on your neck. It gives it just a little bit more comfort and certainly more stability, a little bit more support for the equipment that you carry in this bag. So I think that is just a fantastic little feature. Now, pack boards was something that was very common in the early 20th century. So having a piece of ash or a board or some sort that's very, very thin, putting it towards the back, even in a soft bag, was not uncommon. It's not like Mr. Hillcourt invented this idea. But the fact that he implemented it in a scouting pack when it was never implemented in any other scouting packs since the beginning of the Boy Scouts of America, I think is a step forward in modern or up-to-date hiking philosophy and thinking. You know, he was a scout, but he was also an outdoorsman. He may not have been on the same type of outdoorsman that, of course, Kepler and Nesmith was, but he spent a lot of time, you know, in the woods, using equipment, writing about it, testing it out, and this was something that he thought would be a great addition to his pack that he promoted in his own Patrol Leader's Handbook and in the Boys Life magazine and the Scouting magazine. So there you have it. That is the 1930s Camp O sack. And it does have a clip down here so you can quickly release it. It has just a standard standalone belt webbing system here, just like all the other scouting bags. But that little clip I think is pretty nice to quickly release and get something off. Now, isn't that an awesome bag? I just love this thing. So personally, I want to recreate this bag so I can use it. It's, like I said, it's a little fragile for being almost 100 years old. And it's also not built for somebody my stature. It's built for a kid. But I did slip this on for a period of time with all this equipment in it, and it was amazingly comfortable, way more comfortable than my haversack bag. Now my haversack bag I always take with me. I usually pack it in another bag. That way when I want to go day hiking or shorter hikes, I can carry that along with me. I can use that as a haversack or as a backpack, but not so much with a lot of weight. If you're going to be carrying a lot of weight, having something like this is certainly better and more suitable. So if you've liked this video, do me a favor and click like. That way other people find it. It helps them out as well. You'd be doing them a favor. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, you definitely want to subscribe because next week we're going to do a deep dive into the Scout Belt system. Now last year I did a video on everything that was carried in a Scout Belt, piece by piece by piece. We examined all the different artifacts and what was used. Well, next week I'm going to dive into it a little bit more in depth and think about how we can apply that historical knowledge to our contemporary knowledge, all right? So give you some ideas. That way when you go day hiking or even over a long night, you can think about things in this way, okay? So hit subscribe, that way you don't miss it. Don't forget the notification button. Now, if you want to see the video on the Scout Belt, then you'll want to check this here. You know, that way, you know, you can get excited about it. And if you want to see the video on the haversack, then you want to check this one here. I appreciate you guys stopping by. I hope you learned a little bit of something. Get excited about some history and artifacts. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Give a kiss hug to your loved ones, and I'll see you guys next Sunday. Take care.